There we go.
Now we're live.
Okay. We'll give everybody a minute to join us back.
Yeah, it looks like we lost our YouTube viewers there.
Yes, we lost everybody.
But hey, it is working on Facebook now at least.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to give it a second. I apologize, everybody. We were having some very technical issues, so we definitely apologize for that. As we are getting back up and running, we will reintroduce ourselves for anybody who was not able to join us on Facebook. There were some issues with streaming, so we definitely apologize for that. I think the YouTube team, people watching us there were able to see us, but not Facebook. And we definitely want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to hear Christian's really great message about, coming and finding housing and what life is like in Toronto. So for those who joined and heard us introduce ourselves, I apologize. But for those who haven't, my name is Elizabeth. I am the manager of HR and legal operations here at Visa Place. Visa Place is a full service Canadian and U.S. immigration law firm. We have the pleasure of being in business for, this is our 25th anniversary year. We're very, very excited about that. And our goal is always to be able to provide information and support to people on different immigration topics. And so this week, our immigration topic is about housing and Toronto. And we have an amazing expert, Christian, who is a Toronto real estate broker. And I have learned he's got some really cool accolades. So I'll allow him to introduce himself and then we'll kind of jump right in. If you have questions, please feel free to ask us. We'll get to as many as we can during our live.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for the kind introduction. So she's already introduced me, but just to give you a little bit more information about myself, my name is Christian Moretuzzo. I am a real estate broker here in the Greater Toronto area. Just a little bit about some of my accolades. I was top 30 under 30 in the entire country as of 2020, which I was pretty excited about and pretty cool. So I do have a lot of unique or probably important insight that I can share with you guys on the housing market here in the, well, not necessarily the whole country, but more so specifically in the Toronto area, in the Ontario housing market here. So Elizabeth, do you want to kick it off by maybe asking me some questions, or how do you want to kick this off?
Yeah, sure. I think, again, honestly, congratulations. 30 under 30 is amazing, especially in Toronto. There's, a ton of
Yes.
different real estate philosophies and brokers and, a whole bunch of really cool things that's a huge accomplishment. So congratulations. I think, one of the things that I have lived in or around the GTA my whole life as well. And one of the things that I think, even I, as a resident who's grown up here, is, what's the best thing about Toronto real estate that you wish people knew and that they don't?
I think the best thing about Toronto real estate is we do have a very secure, like our housing market. As anyone who knows who's lives here, I'm sure as you know yourself as well, Elizabeth. This is a very secure market to invest your money in. If you look at the year-over-year returns that we've gotten in Toronto real estate over the past 30 or 40 years, generally you get like an 8% return on your money year over year. I mean, in the past few years, it's been much greater than that because the prices have been going up so incredibly quickly. But I always say to people, throw out the really good years and throw out some of the really bad years and just look at the average. Just look at what's going on an average year, right? Obviously, every year it's not going to go up 20. And every year it's not going to go down 10. But if we look at the average of what actually happens in the Toronto real estate market, we do see about a 7 to 8% increase over the past 20 to 30 years, which I think is phenomenal. We have a very resilient market, even during COVID, when everyone thought, hey, is the housing market going to crash? The exact opposite happened. And that just shows how much faith and how much confidence that people have in our real estate market here. So I think that's a very important thing to know when you're moving here is there's a lot of confidence in the market here. And because of that, it's a very desirable market for people to own a home in or to purchase in, whether you're local to the area or whether you're, we see a lot of, obviously a hot topic here is overseas or investments from other countries. we see a lot of that money coming in here because of how much confidence there is in our market here.
I think that's great. And I think, the other, I guess, competing question, or, the other most common question that I think I would have, or I think anybody else would have, is like, where do I start? Because especially right now, Toronto housing market, even outside of, Toronto, in sort of what would be considered like the GTA, like,
Suburbs,
how do you start? Like, what do you do?
It is very difficult to say, and that is a hot topic. Not only if you're, if you're watching this, you're new to the country, but just know that even within our own country, the younger people, the younger demographic who is moving out of their parents' home and they're buying their first home, this is a hot topic for everybody right now. Not just people newer to the country. It's literally everybody. Even if you've lived here for your entire life, it's still a hot topic for you, right? So what I always tell people is, in this sort of market, when the average price of a detached home in the greater Toronto area is about 1.6 million Canadian dollars right now, right? That's the average price of a detached home. So what I tell people is, hey, you know what? It's probably not likely that you're going to start with your dream house. Real estate is all about making those, stepping stones, right? So, starting off with maybe that condo or that apartment, that, 1 or 2 bedroom apartment that, maybe it's a little bit too small for you, but hey, it gets you into the market. And what I generally tell people is, you may not love your first house, especially in a market like this, but you're going to love where it puts you in 3 to 5 years from now, right? So that's kind of the advice that I give to the younger demographic that lives here in Toronto or here in the GTA when they're looking at getting into the market. My first place was like a 500 square foot small condo apartment, right? And at the time I was like, oh, this is much too small. How can I live here, right? But hey, I only ended up living there for about a year or two. But the equity that I made on that property in that year or two is what allowed me to then, purchase more properties or purchase larger properties, which is what I've done now. But if I didn't start off just with something small to get myself into the market, then I wouldn't have been able to have the opportunities that I have now to now move up into different types of products, right?
And I think one of the really cool things that I love about Toronto is it is so diverse in the cultures and people and food and, art scene. And like Toronto has something for everybody. So I think to your point, like, even if you maybe aren't getting to start with that dream home because it is something that is, expensive and a little bit harder to reach, there is the ability for you to find something that maybe not your most desirable dream home in that moment, but to your point, using it as a stepping stone. But if you find it in an area or community that you love, there's amazing things abound in Toronto everywhere.
Absolutely. It's such a diverse city, right? And it really does have something for everybody. So one of the cool things about living here, kind of as Elizabeth has touched on, is the diversity that we have here. And we are only getting more and more diverse. Like, I can remember when I was, younger and in school, the amount of diversity that we have now compared to 10 or 15 or even 20 years ago, it's just rapidly just becoming more and more diverse. Like, more and more cultures, more and more different types of people are coming here and calling Canada home. So I think that it's just really exciting to see this shift in towards Canada becoming this, huge, or Toronto becoming this large multicultural center where, you can really have a taste of almost any different culture here, which I think is like really phenomenal.
Absolutely. And we do have a couple questions. So I do want to touch on at the start, we kind of talked about immigration. Again, I'm from Visa Place. Visa Place is a full service law firm. We do specialize in immigration. So one of the questions is, am I a consultant? I am not an immigration consultant. However, I do oversee our legal team who manage and complete applications. We have lawyers, full service teams that are available for you. You can check out our website. We do have people who will we'll walk you through a couple of questions and see what avenue might be your best bet to joining or coming to Canada. There are a lot of immigration pathways and streams that are open, whether you are looking to do a visitor visa or you're looking to immigrate here permanently. There's different types of applications that would be available to you, and we would absolutely love to help you with that. And so it's such a great question. You definitely can please feel free to check out our website, which is visaplace.com. There's some really cool tools that you can use there to look into different pathways, and there's a form that you can complete, and our team can reach out to you to discuss what pathway you'd be interested in and do you qualify for it. So that is definitely something that we would be able to assist you with. So please feel free to check out that website. And then ultimately, Christian has some really great insight into the real estate market. So not only when you're looking to come here, what do you do sort of once you have arrived to Toronto?
Yep, totally. So, is there any specific questions you want me to answer with the real estate market here, or anything you want me to go through?
I think one thing that I know a lot of people want to know is, what should they look for when they're looking for someone who's going to help them, achieve their real estate dreams? Like, you come, you are looking for somewhere to live. How do you know that you've got a real estate agent who is going to help you figure out where you should be, what, works for you?
Well, there's several ways, but kind of before I kind of jump into that, I do want to kind of jump into like what a real estate agent or like realtor's role is when you come to Canada and or when you come to Toronto and you start looking for a house, right? So at the very basic level, it's probably wherever you're coming from, it's probably similar at the very basic level of that real estate agent is going to guide you through the process of buying or selling a house, whether it's whether it's a condo or a detached house, whatever type of home you're looking for, their basic function is to kind of guide you through that process and to help you achieve that in the best way, right? So obviously different real estate agents are going to have different, expertise when it comes to different neighborhoods or areas. One may be a little bit more of an expert on the east side of Toronto. One may be a little bit more of an expert on the west side, or, maybe up north and maybe more rural area. So some of those things some of those questions can come into play too. Is what area do you have your expertise in, or which area are you most comfortable serving, right? Obviously, a real estate agent's job, kind of similar to probably whichever country you're coming from, is to help you negotiate and get the best deal, or get you the most favorable terms for this new place that you're moving into. Whether it's a place that you're purchasing, whether it's a place that you're renting. This real estate agent's ability to not only help you and negotiate terms of the deal, but to sell you as a person is actually very, very important as well, right? So think about it. If you are a tenant and you're looking for a place to rent, your real estate agent's job one of your real estate agent's job is going to be to talk you up and make you look good to the landlord, right? So if the real estate agent's not able to do that, then that would be, I guess, a big red flag to look for, right? Same thing when it comes to purchasing is if they have a lot of connections or able to help you out with, securing a mortgage or getting your financing into place. And not only just, selling you a property, they should be able to give you a lot of input and insight on what that area is like, what the comparable or recent sales are like in the area, what the average prices are like. And if you're looking at maybe a condo building or an apartment building, a lot of insights on that building. If you're looking at a specific neighborhood, insights or opinions on that neighborhood, what the demographics like, what the lifestyles like, what the different commutability or geographic factors are like in that area. So a lot of things to look for. I just wanted to also give you guys a little bit of insight maybe on how commissions work, because it's probably different on the country that you're coming from versus here. So in Ontario, in Canada, as far as I know, the seller pays for any sort of commissions, or the landlord pays for any sort of commissions that are payable. So when you do work with a real estate agent to help you buy or to help you lease a property in this area, you actually do not have to pay for the real estate agent. Like, they're essentially free for you to use. because the landlord is the landlord or the seller of the house would be taking care of any of that. So just in case any of you had that kind of question as to, what does it cost to use a real estate agent here? It is free to use, or not free, but the seller is paying for it when you use a real estate agent if free to you when you're using a real estate agent in Ontario here. A couple sample questions that a real estate agent may ask you when you first start talking to one that I've kind of thought up here is, or these are kind of the questions that I ask, when I have newer clients coming to me and they're kind of engaging for my help. Location area, which location or areas are you looking into? Do you know which location or areas that you want? There's a good chance you actually may not know which location or area that you want. You may say, hey, my job is here, my family's here, this is where I'm looking, this is what I need, what location is best for me? And obviously, that real estate agent or myself would be, happy to give you more insight on which area may be the best one for you. Budget, obviously a big consideration here because real estate prices are much more expensive right now than they were a few years ago. And this is true whether you are buying or renting a house. It doesn't, they're, in both cases, you are paying more to live here today than you were a few years ago. So, what is your budget? Have you gotten your pre-approval done? These types of questions are obviously ones that will pop up, or that I would ask any newer person who is coming to me for help finding housing in the Toronto area here. Space and size requirements, like how many bedrooms do you need? Like, if you've got, depending on your family size, you may need a different number of bedrooms or a different size, or you might need a backyard, you may not need a backyard. These are all kind of considerations that come into play, is what exactly are you looking for, right? And of course, like timeline, like how soon do you need it? Like when are you planning to actually be here and start using this house that you've either rented or purchased, right? So timeline on when you need to be into this new house is obviously an important factor to consider as well.
Well, I definitely want to touch on something that you said that I think, resonated with me, is that, you had said, hey, do you have your pre-approval? I think, the one thing that I potentially would want to know if I was, moving to a new country is, do I need any of that? Or can I just start with like, okay, I've come to Canada. I know that I'm going to be living in Toronto and I've arrived, and maybe like my next step is reach out to a realtor. Is that something that, you or any other realtor might be able to say, okay, you don't have these things, here's the sort of steps to follow?
Totally. So these are the kind of things that you want to look for when you're looking for a real estate agent, right? Is you want to have an agent who's able to guide you through those steps and point you in the right directions. Like, part of being a good real estate agent is not necessarily just, negotiating or finding you a house. It's also, having those contacts and having those steps and having those processes in place, so that when you come here and you, hey, I'm here, I need to buy a house. It's not just, it's not just buying a house. There's a lot of steps and a lot of things to go through on that journey, right? So these are absolutely things that a real estate agent should be able to help you with, in terms of, getting in touch with the right people, pointing you in the right direction, and at the end of the day, making sure that you're making the best, or, the right decision for yourself when it comes to purchasing or renting or doing anything real estate related in the Toronto area here.
I think one of the other things that I know everybody always wants to know, and I feel like maybe, announcing it on YouTube and Facebook might limit to this to continue to be the case. But, if you had like top pick for most budget friendly, best value for your buck, like what neighborhood would you be like, this is where you want to go if you want to be in the best like value for your dollar?
I think that really depends on like where exactly you want to be in the GTA, but I'll give a couple examples, right? So, I mean, for instance, if you are, if you're okay with being in like maybe a suburb outside of the GTA, and you want to buy a detached home, or you want to buy, a townhouse, something with a backyard and something with a little bit more space, there are a couple of areas kind of around the GTA that I think are pretty good pockets to look into. And of course, this would all depend on like exactly how close you want to be to the GTA, and things of this nature, right? So I think Hamilton is actually a great one to look into. Like I'm very confident and bullish on Hamilton. The commutability and the caveat I will say, the commutability into Toronto, if you're doing that commute every day, it is a little bit long. It is a little bit long. I will it is going to be improving. There is GO train access, and that all that stuff is starting to ramp up in that area, which is great. But for instance, if you look at Hamilton compared to the rest of the surrounding areas, like Burlington or Ancaster, Stony Creek, Grimsby, Hamilton looks like a bargain right now, in my opinion. So I think that's a really great one to look into. If you want to be on the east side, we've got areas like Pickering, Ajax, for instance. These are also great areas to look into if you're okay with being a little further out. And then if you want to be even a little further and a little more budget friendly than that, of course, you can go all the way to Oshawa or Whitby or these types of areas, right? But these are kind of suggestions of mine if you are okay with being a little bit out of the city. You don't need to commute into Toronto every day. Maybe your job is not even in Toronto. So if this sounds like you, then these are some of the areas that I think that you can kind of still get a somewhat, I want to say affordable, because they're still expensive, but they're affordable compared to everything else that's kind of surrounding them, right? So that's a few examples. If you want to be like right in the city, so let's just say if you want to be like in Toronto, I want to live, in Toronto itself, right? Like I don't want to be in Mississauga. I don't want to be in, Scarborough or Pickering or any of these spaces. Like I need to be right in Toronto. So I think there are some cool places like right in Toronto. Like for instance, if you go a little bit west of the city core, kind of to Etobicoke or the Humber Bay area, I think that offers a lot of value versus living like right directly in the city. And at the end of the day, you're only like one or two GO train stops away from being right directly in the core, right? So I think areas like that offer a lot of value if you want to say, hey, I live like in Toronto, like you are living in Toronto, but you're just slightly outside of that downtown core. So I think that areas like that offer do offer like a compelling like value proposition compared to living like right directly in the core, right? So that's kind of my input on that.
I love that. And we, speaking sort of from the immigration perspective, we get a lot of different sort of situations. We get a lot of students who are coming in on a student visa. We get a lot of, young families who are, coming from tech perspective, because one of the things that people may or may not realize is Canada, Ontario, Toronto, especially, we are becoming these massive, tech centers. We're getting huge distribution centers. We're getting places like Amazon. We're getting tons of like Google is going to be here.
Cool.
We're getting a lot of really cool tech stuff that is attracting top talent from all over the world.
Absolutely.
And so we get people who, really care about, ultimately different things. And so I think one of the really cool things that in my experience with using a realtor has happened is, and to your point, the more you tell your realtor about what you're looking for and what your needs are, the better kind of they are able to craft that. But Toronto is also really well known from a realtor perspective for having this like walkability perspective, right? Like you can rate where somebody lives based on how accessible it is to things like transit. And we have some of the best transit in the world.
We do, totally. So if you go on like sites like walkscore.com or some of that, there's sites like that where you can literally type in an address and see if you literally type in any address of like, let's just say a condo building or whatever home you're looking at, you can type in that address and you'll actually get like what's called like a walk score, which means like how walkable that is. I think they also give you like a bike score, which is like how close or how bikeable that area is. And then it also kind of gives you like a prediction on if you would need a car or not, right? Because certain areas, and actually a lot of areas in Toronto here, I don't believe that you really need a car, right? Our transit systems are great. We've got a lot of walkability. We've got many stores and amenities that are very close by and centralized. So that if you're living in certain locations, I absolutely think that you can get away without having a car at all. Especially if you're living kind of in a city core type of area. If you're further out, if you're in some of these areas like I've spoken about before, like in a suburb like Hamilton or Pickering or Ajax, most likely you will want a car if you're living in those more suburban type settings, where it's mostly just, suburban type neighborhoods, and things are a little bit more spaced out and not so close together. You will generally want a car in those types of areas. But if you're if you're in the city core, if you're in Toronto, if you're in the middle of it all, I almost think that having a car is almost a liability, because you won't be using it. You'll be paying for it, but there's not that much parking. There's, the traffic is very heavy. There's lots of traffic. In some cases, it takes you less time to walk or to ride a bike than it would to take your car and find parking and drive it through traffic. It's actually, I would say, almost, as I said, a liability to have a car when you're right downtown, because that's how close everything is to you. So that's, yeah, as I said, that's I think you really hit the nail on the head there. And a good site to look at for this is I believe it's called walkscore.com, where you can literally just type in the address and it will give you that walkability score right on the site.
What would you say is the sort of Toronto, because I mean there are going to be people who we get a lot of students who are applying to York and Humber, yeah, and all of the sort of hub close locations, but what would you say is, if you're coming to Canada or Toronto and you want to live in the college / university district where there's a lot of really cool nightlife, there's a lot of really cool food. I mean, you can get amazing stuff everywhere in Toronto, but where would you say is in proximity to schools? Where would you pick if you were looking to reside?
Well, I really think that depends on which school you're going to, right? Because what I find is pretty much any of these schools, whether you're going to York or Humber or Queens or whichever university or school that you're planning to go to, they all usually have a very good kind of core built up around them. Whereas if you're living kind of anywhere in close proximity to that school, maybe within a couple kilometers or a kilometer of that school, you're going to be in the middle of the you're going to have all those amenities around you, right? If you're living in if you're going to York but you're living in Mississauga, of course you're going to be so far removed from all of the things that these schools or these institutions have to offer, right? And they know that hey, listen, these schools, they are not they're not blind to the fact that a lot of newer people or a lot of people students are coming in, and there's a lot of international students at the school. So if you are living in and around these areas, they have built up infrastructure and built up their facilities, and there's businesses and nightlife and restaurants and all of these types of amenities right around, right built into that school area there, right? So I think that if you are a student and you are, going to University of Toronto or York or whichever one that you're picking to go to, that I would highly recommend you try to stick and find housing close to that, in close proximity to that specific school. It is probably going to be a little bit more costly than going a little bit further out. So I know it may be tempting to say, hey, if I go a little further out, if I go 10 kilometers away, I'm going to save $100 a month, or save whatever amount that looks like, right? I would not recommend doing that, because it's just going to remove you from all those amenities and all the business and all the culture and student life that those schools have to offer, right? And not to mention that, I mean, hey, if you're only saving $100 a month for going 10 or 20 kilometers out, remember, you have to commute, and you have to then you're gonna spend that money back on commuting that 10 kilometers to the school campus every single day, right? Maybe even more. So
easily
break down the cost benefit there, the cost benefit ratio of doing something like that. There's probably actually no benefit to doing that, right? So yeah, if you are an international student watching this, do not be tempted to save $100 or $150 a month to go further out. Pay that little bit extra. Do not worry about commuting, and be close to all the amenities or all the facilities that school, that hub has to offer to you.
Is there, personally, I don't believe that people make mistakes. I think we, go through things that,
sure.
we learn from. And so I think, one of the things that I would want to know for, anybody who's coming here, is there one question that you really either don't ever want to forget to ask, or, is like, that's your make or break question of your realtor? Like what's one really good, either don't forget to ask this, or if someone says this, run the other way?
I think honestly, like here's the thing, right? People can say whatever they want to say, but at the end of the day, what I always encourage people to do is go online and do a little bit of research on your realtor, right? Because hey, they could have a really good answer, a really bad answer, and at the end of the day, like people. I could say whatever I wanted to say, but hey, if the proof is the proof is in the pudding when you look online at somebody's reviews or what they're doing, right? So I always I always tell people to put a lot of weight on those types of things, because hey, if that realtor doesn't have a good reputation, they don't have many reviews, they don't have a lot of online presence, that kind of says a lot more than kind of anything that's going to come out of their mouth, right? So that's why I tell people to do a lot of to do a lot of research on their realtor and on that specific realtor that they're thinking about before they actually hey, follow them on social media, go like on their YouTube channel, like go on their Instagram, like look, like Google them, like what comes up, like read some reviews, like are they good reviews, are they all good reviews, like are they fake reviews, like hey, like what's that, like do a little bit of research on who you're working with before you choose to work with them. And I think that will tell you more than any question could possibly tell you about who that who that person is, in my opinion anyways, right?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. And I think, one of the things that I always tell people is, have a conversation with the person, right? If you're not sure, see for yourself, right?
A lot of
Everybody
it's
has
going to come
different.
down to gut feeling too, right?
Yeah.
When you have that initial conversation, if you can do all the research, you can ask all the questions, but at the end of the day, you're probably going to have this like little feeling in your gut, like, hey, like, did we kind of like, because hey, this realtor may be super qualified and super amazing, but maybe you just don't jive with them, right? And I think that plays a factor too. Like this is kind of an important an important process, a huge process that you're going to be going through. So even let's just say, even if they were the best realtor in the entire country, if you're just not jiving, like you don't feel that connection, like you're not jiving with them, the conversation isn't flowing, then hey, maybe that's not the person that you want. Maybe you want like the second best one or something. I don't know, but
oh my goodness, totally. And you know what? We're getting a lot of really great questions. I think that people are, starting to kind of feel that too. So I apologize. I think it's DeAndre. DeAndre said, what type of property would you recommend for someone new coming to Toronto with a family with their job in the heart of the city?
Okay, so obviously if your job is in the heart of the city, you do not want to be too far from Toronto. And when I say too far, like, hey, going to the suburbs, I think it's all going to come down to what is acceptable to you for a commute, right? Like, are you willing to commute 20, 30, 40, 50? Like, what is your threshold on what you deem to be acceptable for a commute, right? So based on that, I think that it also comes down to your budget of what you're able to afford. And obviously the further you go outside of Toronto, the more your money's going to get you, right? So if you've got a family, I'm going to go on the limb here and assume that if you have a family, you might not want to live in an apartment. You might want some sort of a ground-oriented house, like a townhome or maybe a condo town, whatever, a semi-detached, some type of property like that, right? So you got a job in the heart in the city and you want some sort of a ground-oriented house, I would highly recommend looking for some type of ground-oriented housing, something with a little bit of space for your family, because I think that's going to be very important for you, but also something that is close to transit and allows you to have an acceptable commute time to and from work. I mean, keep in mind that here, because of the way the house prices are here and because of our housing market, people's expectations shift all the time. But maybe that 20-minute commute comes, 30, maybe I can do 30, maybe I can do 40, right? So you'll start to see as you look that maybe your expectations will change a little bit over time. But I would say that's a great question to have with with your realtor and figure out for your exact or for your situation, which type of property or area makes the most sense for you specifically, right? Because one person may say, hey, I don't care. I'll put my family in a 2-bedroom, condo apartment because I don't want to commute. I want to be right there. And another person may say, hey, I want a backyard. I want ground-oriented housing. I want more space. I don't care. I'll commute an hour I don't even care. I just, I want that space for my family, right? So depending on your unique circumstance, I think that in your own specific criteria or wish list, that answer is going to change a little bit from person to person, right? But great question.
And I think also, DeAndre, one of the things that, I understand uniquely, I have 2 small children. Something that really matters for me is how long is my commute going to take me to get home to them if there's an emergency? Am I close to things that they can do that are fun on the weekend? One of the other things that I oftentimes, worry about is school. So am I in an area where, there's a really great access to whether you're looking for public, private, Catholic, alternative education system. I think that, that's something that, to Christian's point, have that conversation with your realtor, because the really cool thing is whether you're on the east side of the GTA, and you're talking, Oshawa, Whitby, Ajax, Pickering, the hub for GO Train is improving all of the time. There are really great quick schedules. I commute from Ajax and I drive, and when we were at the height of the pandemic and you didn't have very much traffic on the road, it was very smooth sailing. It took like 25 minutes to get from point A to point B. But now, as we're seeing people getting back to sort of that normal day-to-day pattern, and the other thing to bear in mind when you move to Toronto, at least from my opinion, is as a person who does have to commute, you have 2 seasons for commuting in Toronto: winter and construction. And those are the 2, road seasons that you have. So I think, that's something that also, to Christian's point, do you want a car? Do you want a quick commute? Are you okay living in multi family home with, maybe you've got a couple people sharing a room? I think that's something that's super, super important. And I'm really glad we've given you a lot of really great things to consider. And at the end, we'll make sure we've got everybody having access to how to get a hold of Christian. So if he has any questions. One of the other questions that we have been getting is around different types of work permits and different sort of pathways in. And if you are coming in on a temporary pathway, but you have family, is there concerns there? And so one of the things that I always tell people is Visa Place has helped people, hundreds of thousands of people over the past 25 years, realize their immigration dreams. But not only realize your immigration dreams, understand sort of what your end game is. So, if you're looking to, let's say you come on a student visa, you are an international student, you really enjoy life in Canada, and you are looking to go past your student visa, there's a lot of different avenues that are available to you: postgraduate work permits, different types of work permits. Maybe you came here, and you started in your first year of university, and now you're engaged to a Canadian. There's a spousal pathway that, can fit for you. And so, much like in Christian's case, whatever your real estate needs are, I really, really sort of recommend that everybody, reaches out. Obviously, we would love you to reach out to us, but, you reach out to an immigration professional and you just level with them. Like, this is, what my dream is. This is what I would like to do, or this is my end game. How do I achieve that? It's a lot like real estate, right? How do we find you the most, strategic, best path forward for you in immigration? And we've got a lot of really great immigration professionals here who have expertise in different areas. Just like Christian was saying, he's got, people who might know a little bit more about the East End or a little bit about the West. We have people who are very corporate, people who do, simple applications from sort of, a visitor visa to a student visa, to people who want to look to get, a PR in Canada. So much like for myself myself and Christian, let us know. And we definitely are, in the business of trying to make your dreams reality. And so I think it's such a, cool partnership to be able to have that conversation both on the immigration and on the housing front, because I think both of those things right now are kind of, aspirational and dreamlike. I think, Christian, is there anything that you wish people knew, either about like getting through the real estate journey or like coming to you with something? Like, is there something you wish that people knew?
Okay, so this is kind of an interesting question, because I find that generally, and I don't want to generalize here, but I will make this statement that generally, I find that a lot of people that I work with that are newer to the Canada or newer to the area here, they come here and they do not have any idea, like they haven't done their research before they come here, right? So they think they can just show up with and they'll just find a house, like it's just gonna happen like that, right? That is the furthest thing from the truth. Just because you got accepted to come into Canada, to come to you're going to settle in Toronto and the GTA, whatever the case is, does not mean you just show up and like there's going to be a house available. Like that's not the way that it works in this market, right? So I think that before you do commit to making a move like this, or you do commit to an area, or you do commit to coming to find housing here, I really urge you to either get in touch with a real estate agent, or to do a lot of your own research on what's happening in the market here, what the prices are like, because I actually feel very bad for a lot of these people where they get accepted to come in and they haven't done any research. They show up and they have little savings, or they have they don't have a job lined up yet, and they're trying to find a place to rent or a place to live, and it's it is extremely difficult if you're in kind of this situation where you don't have where you're not able to compete in a very, very competitive housing market, right? So I just want to kind of before you make this move into Toronto, into the GTA here, just to be able to get in touch with an agent, whether it's me or not, somebody else, to help you in this it is a very competitive housing market here. It is not, oh, you just show up and you get a key and you just have a house. Like that is not the way that this market works right now. And I'm only saying this because I see a lot of people come here with that expectation that when they show up, they get a key, they open the door and the house is theirs. Like, and they have to go through a lot of hardship, and they learn this the hard way, that's not how it works, right? So, having savings lined up, like, because in a very, like, we're in a very hot rental market right now where, there's people out there, or there's people I've seen newer to the country, people out there who are offering like 6 months or a year's rent up front just to be able to secure a place, because that's how competitive it is here, right? Same, like, just as competitive as we've talked about it is to purchase or buy a house here, it's also very competitive to rent a house here, extremely competitive. And as I said, I've seen people in that situation where they've offered things like 6 months or a year up front of rent just to get a place to rent, right? So that is the one thing I really urge you to do as a newcomer, or as someone considering like making Toronto or the GTA a place that you want to settle down or live in, is really make sure you've done your research on the housing market, and make sure that it's something that you're equipped or prepared to jump into when it comes to finding a place to live or a place to rent. Make sure your expectations are kind of in line with, hey, if my budget's $2,500 a month, $3,000 a month, what is that actually going to get me? Like, I'm not, that's not going to get you a massive, palace or mansion out here, right? So just having those expectations and being prepared and being well researched, I think is the best thing that you can possibly do before you come here. Because as I said, the only reason I'm saying this is because I see it all the time where people come here and they haven't done that research. They haven't had they haven't had that, conversation with a realtor or anything like that. And they just show up and it's like a scramble to find a house, because they can't, like, they just don't know what they're looking for. And they haven't lined up all their paperwork, and they're just not prepared. And this is a very stressful way to do this. So make sure that you've, as I said, reached out, done your research, and try to take some of that stress off from when you actually come here, right?
And I think, same thing. We have someone asking about a work visa. We help people with all kinds of visas: visitor, student, work, spousal, special considerations. We have teams who specialize in this, and so yeah, we can absolutely help you with that. We would love to help you with that. I think one of the things that I sort of echo with you is sometimes what we see is people don't understand the extent of information that you need to be able to provide to a housing board, to a landlord, to the immigration professionals who are going to allow you in. And I think it's such a very important point, to your point of it's one thing to have this dream to come here and reach out to somebody like yourself for Visa Place, and we absolutely are in the business of making those dreams realities. But at the same time, I think it is important for people to understand there is a lot that goes into this. And I can understand how that is your one thing that you wish people knew, because I would feel terrible as well, where people think they're just showing up, and that isn't how it is. And we want to be able to have you be successful, whether it's us on the immigration side or Christian on the real estate side. But we ultimately, that is something that we do need people to be prepared for. And I think that's such a great point.
And I think that like we only say this because we want you to be successful when you come here, right? Like, we don't want you to come here and be like, oh my gosh, this was the biggest mistake ever. Like, I gotta go back home. Like, I can't find a house. I can't, no landlord is going to accept me, or we don't want to see you in those types of positions. We want you to come here and like succeed. We want you to be happy here, right? So if that's not going to be the case, then we need you to know that, right? So we're in the business of as Elizabeth said, making these dreams come true, but we want to make sure that we're preparing you too, right? And that you're prepared yourselves for what you're gonna face when you first come here.
And speaking as the HR side of me, I think it's such a labor of love to go through, whether you're going through school, whether you're buying a home, whether you're building a family here. And there, to your point, there's a lot of stress that goes along with that. And so, reach out to people in your network. If it's, hey, it's your realtor because they're introducing you, ask them, hey, do is there a community center nearby? Is there, any programs that, my kids could get into? Is it a family friendly area if you're looking for family? When you're connecting with the job that you're coming into or the school that you're coming into, a lot of the time, one of the things that we, at Visa Place see and we try as best as we can, and our goal is to help facilitate that, is to really ensure that you're open to those experiences and what they might be. And you understand that, we understand it's going to be stressful for you. Buying a house is stressful. Immigrating is stressful. And trying to put the two of those together is a little bit more stressful. And so being able to rely on a network of people, one of the things that we try to tell people who are coming on work permits is talk to your employer. Maybe they have support services. Maybe they have recommendations for, a large demographic of our workforce live in this area. And you know what? Maybe they have people who have postings. A lot of employers have postings right now where, they say like, hey, maybe you're looking for a roommate. And, that's something that you can get your foot in the door that way with real estate. I think the other thing that, I always hear people asking us, and I think, it is an age group kind of thing. And, maybe Christian can help us out with that. A lot of people right now are really looking to come and sort of do the whole social media phase, right? TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, social media and influencing is a really big thing. And there are some really big names in Toronto and Canada that, are here. And so I think one of the things that, we are always sort of looking at is if you're kind of gearing yourself towards that lifestyle, is there an area that we talked about, family and commute? Is there an area you want to be in if you want to be that social media person.
Hey, if you want to be like that social media star, if you want to be the influencer, like I think you got to be close to like the downtown core, right? Like that's where all the excitement is happening. That's where all the things, the events, the scenery. Like if you're here just for the to get that experience and to capture that kind of content, create that kind of content, I think you really want to be. I think you really want to be like in the core or very close to Toronto, right? I mean, I would also say this with the caveat that it depends on what kind of content you want to create. Hey, maybe you want to go live like 3 hours out on like a farm somewhere and create like that kind of, maybe that's the content that you want to create, right? But I would say generally, for most people, because all of the shops, all the stores, all the nightlife, all the bars, the restaurants, the shopping, everything is like really concentrated heavily in the core area. That's, if you're an influencer and you want to make content on that type of stuff, then you want to be where all of the stuff to make content about is, which is, in the core area, right? So if you're interested in doing that type of if in that type of work, then that's your answer. That's where you got to be.
And I think one of the really cool things that Christian has pointed out is that Visa Place can help you with any of the immigration needs that you have. You just have to know what you're looking for. Same thing in the real estate market, right? Christian can help you with where do you need to be, where do you want to be, what does that look like for you? But you kind of have to have that conversation with us. We can help you with student work, spousal. Special consideration applications, and Christian can help you whether you want to be in the East Coast of, in the east side of Toronto or GTA, west side, downtown sort of core, northern, Vaughan and Richmond Hill area. But I think one of the things is that we want to be able to help you. One of the other questions that we've gotten is what type of visas are available for skilled persons in Canada? So Canada has some really cool immigration pathways. And so we've got provincial ones. Those are called provincial nominations. And so there's different trade markets that you can get, whether you're looking at Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec. There's a lot of really cool startup. One of the things that, we talked a little bit earlier about with Christian is, Canada, especially Toronto and Ontario, we're kind of up and coming in sort of the tech side of things. And so there's some really cool technology visas and applications that you can come into Canada on. If you have a company who, trades or does business in Canada, we might be able to look at, can we do an intercompany transfer? There's a lot of really cool pathways when it relates to your job. And, somebody like Christian can kind of help you decide, okay, I'm coming into Canada to be a student. This is the school I'm accepted to. Boom. This is the neighborhood you want to be in, or the, couple of neighborhoods that you want to be in. If you're coming in and you want to do a startup company of your own, because we help people with startup companies all of the time, and you don't know where you want to be, we can take care of the application side of it for you. And Christian can be like, hey, okay, you want to be in tech, here's the number one place to be in tech. One of the things that I always am surprised by is, when you think tech, a lot of people think Toronto, but like places like BlackBerry and all of, those little hubs that started as, smaller centers, they started, Cambridge, London, like in the western part of Ontario, Waterloo. Yeah. And so there's a lot of really cool things that can make those dreams a reality. And if you are a skilled trades labor, I really recommend that you reach out and you ask us, hey, this is my skilled trade. And we can either find you a upcoming draw. There's a whole bunch of draws that we're anticipating the government to do over the next couple of months, particularly starting in July. And that kind of also gets you right in line for if you are coming, in and you're looking for school zone, school in Ontario, not a lot of people know this. School in Ontario starts in September. And so, the ideal lead time, to Christian's point, please don't be disappointed when you don't just kind of get here and go, okay, here's my key. That might take some time finding out what school district you want to be in to get your kid in there. Right. So take the time that you need to do that. I think that's a definitely huge piece. I think we've hit the questions so far that have been in there. Is there anything, Christian, that you think that, you would like to cover, either related to like housing area, market, what to expect, that we didn't cover off?
I
Because
think we covered off most things, but kind of what I want to leave everybody with is just kind of the sentiment here that, hey, like, kind of to Elizabeth's point here, generally we can find a solution to you. Like whether you want to, what type of visa you want. Obviously, I'm not the expert in that. I'm going to let Elizabeth answer all those questions and do all that. But, whether it's, what type of visa or how to get here or what type of housing it is to, you're going to be in, or where to rent or how to buy, all those types of questions. Like generally we will have a solution here for most people. It's just that solution is going to look different depending on, who you are and what your circumstances are, why you're coming here. There's so many different factors on Elizabeth's end as well as my end in terms of, budget and area. Do you have a job lined up? How much savings do you have? Like these things are all big considerations, and there is generally a solution for just about everybody. It's just getting that conversation started with, herself or I or whoever else you're looking to use to help this dream come true. It's really just a matter of getting that conversation started so that we can give you the right advice for your situation, right? At the end of the day, everyone's got a different situation. You all have different needs. You're all coming here for different purposes. You all have different family sizes. You all have different reasons to be here. But whatever the case is, we can help you find that solution that's going to likely work for you to be here. But it's all a matter of getting that getting that conversation started so that we can give you that help or advice, right? So I think that's the most important thing. Before you come here, get that help, get that advice. Don't expect to just show up and everything just happens. Like that's not going to work that way. Do your research, get your help, get your advice beforehand, and it will make your transition here so much smoother.
And we have heard, at least in law, like we've heard it all. I'm sure you have too, right? Please don't ever feel that there's a question that you shouldn't be able to ask your, immigration professional or your attorney, especially at Visa Place. There is no such thing as a dumb question. We want people to ask those questions, because if you ask us those questions, we know how to support you and best sort of provide those answers. Same thing, if you think that there's something that, you are dying to know or a question you want to ask, please, ask it to Visa Place if it's an immigration question, Christian, if it's a real estate question, because those are the things where that's how we help you. We really, really do. Everybody's interest, both in both Christian's world and in ours, is how do we help you make this a reality for you, your family, whatever that looks like. And the more information that you have, the more information that we have, the better we're able to support you. I would love to be able to open up to questions. So if anybody does have any questions, I think that that's something that, is very, very important. Our team has listed for you. Again, you can reach out to us at visaplace.com, depending on, what type of application or pathway you have. Our team will be able to assist you. We've got our phone number listed in there. And Christian, maybe what we can do, I do see some questions coming in, which I really think is great, and we'll get to in 1 second. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they're looking to get their real estate questions answered?
So sorry, say that again.
What's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they are looking to get some real estate questions answered?
Okay, so you can go onto my website, christianmoretuzzo.com. It'll either be linked here or just my first name, last name.com. You can send me a message through there. I've got my email, info@christianmoretuzzo.com. Between those two things, I will get back to you as basically as soon as I can once I receive your message through either one of those channels.
Yeah. And so as we start getting questions that are rolling in, I'll just kind of take a couple of those before we end, because we started a little bit late for the technical difficulties. We apologize for that. In Canada, how can you come to work with less education? less English potentially not being spoken fluently. So there's a lot of really great things that you can look at from a immigration pathway perspective. And I would say, if you know that you're looking to improve your language skills, speaking to an immigration professional about different scores, because in Canada there are different scores that you get on something like an express entry or a provincial nomination that go towards English fluency, skilled trade, education, background, sort of the diversity of the workforce that's available. And so speaking to your immigration professional about the best pathway for you into Canada, and just be honest with them, like, hey, English is not my, first language. I'm not very strong in it. I'm not sure how I would do with the proficiency of an English examination. And they can look at, do you apply under any different terms? Are there grounds to have you come in as a skilled trade, as a caregiver, as a student, as, somebody who is looking to do a work permit? If you have a spouse who already has a permit, can you piggyback onto their permit? And having that conversation with an immigration professional who can kind of, take a look at the entire picture, look at you as a whole, and not just one specific skill set. That's probably your best way to address language, or if there's an economic gap potentially. Those are the best ways that you can address that. So please, again, feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to help you with that. Do we have any questions from anybody else? Anything for Christian? Anything for Visa Place? I mean, you've got our contact, and you can get a hold of us. But while we have Christian live and in person, does anybody have any burning immigration questions or things that you want to pick Christian's brain about? Maybe while we wait for that, Christian, I definitely thank you so much. This was super informative, selfishly for me, even learning, it's not as easy as people think. I think, that's the one thing that people also who are already here, are struggling with. And that, we forget sometimes that, to your point, someone's starting at where you think that you're finishing. And I think that's the really cool beauty and symmetry behind a lot of stuff. With immigration in Canada in specific, and that it's important to just remember it's a journey, right? And where do you start will dictate your path, but it's important to just start somewhere, I think.
Yep, you got to start. You got to open up that conversation, and as Elizabeth has touched on many times, like if we don't have the information, if you haven't given it to us, we can't help you. Like, we need that information to help you. If we don't have the information, then there is nothing we can do. So you just got to open up that conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And Bikram, I think, again, IELTS is a huge component of Canadian immigration. And so I would just recommend reach out to us, and the team can talk to you about what pathways may not include the need for an IELTS exam. And that's probably your best path forward, because there are a lot of streams that do require IELTS. And so in order to see if you can be supported for a non-IELTS avenue, I would just recommend reaching out and having that conversation with a Visa Place consultant, and they can help find your best path for you. We'll post everything for connecting with ourselves and Christian. And Christian, again, congratulations on the 30 under 30. And thank you so much for taking the time to help our lovely audience understand what it's like to come and live in Canada, and specifically in Toronto.
Thank you for having me, Elizabeth. I really appreciate it.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.